I'm Dripment, I'm a tutorial. Trying to make one of these little WUB basses, some funky things. I want to show you guys what we're working on first. Let's run it. We got some of that funk going on here, and we have it in bass form. It's really important that we get movement and pitch. Adding all this variation gives us the feeling and the emotion that we need. I'm referencing a song that I found on TikTok, Alpenglow, Take It Easy. Sounds very similar to Griz, and me and my students were breaking down this song. He wanted to check it out. What we learned was that we are doing some strategic jumps in our notes. This is probably the most important part here. Quickly, if you want to make the drum loop, it's just a kick on every bar. Snares in the middle on the 0.3s, and our hi-hat just going. I believe that's eighth. So yeah, eighth hats, easy drum loops. But this is the main thing we're getting into, right? The Serum patch. We want to make this thing movie, groovy, but it all starts with the notes. Without the foundation of these notes here, the music theory, it all falls apart. We're in E minor, first off. First we start home, and then we take a jump up to home again. So we start at E0, then we go to E1. We're staying within this octave of 0, and we're using the most important notes, which is the first note, home, and the fifth note, also the third. This math, the music theory, the notes, and all these intervals that we're moving across from jumping around is really important. That's creating the emotion, and most importantly, it's the patterns that we need to recognize, how we're jumping up the scale, then walking down the scale, going back up the scale, going back down, and keeping a foundation home, which is at E. We keep coming back here, and then right at the end, we do a special little walk down the scale, and we go to the 7th to transition back home to E. The songwriting is going to be important for you to capture the correct emotion. If you get the math right, like using the root, the third, the fifth, the 7th, and home, it's really going to help a lot. So pay attention to the notes you use and try to make a nice flow. This is 4 bars. We're usually in 4-bar phrases, and we have one section and then another section. This is going to be paired with the sub bass, very important. The sub bass are the lows. It's just the same exact MIDI. Remember, in an octave 0, so it's easy. And we're just going to load up the easiest sub, hip-hop sub bass. It is an operator with multi-band dynamics and saturator. So it's simple, clean, ready to go out the box, and we just add a little bit of kick tight. 8%. Call it a day. Tune your kick tight to your root note. We're in E minor, so we're in E0. And that flows with this. The ducking that you hear is sidechain. So remember, we're going to have sidechain to everything to the kick for maximum bounce, cleanliness, awesomeness. All right, cool. Let's get into the Griz patch. So this is going to involve all this post-processing, but we're going to get into this real soon. Listen to it with post-processing off. It's a little baby. Then we also have more post-processing in Serum. EQ, compression, all this. We're going to turn these off too. The pour sound is so tiny, so small, but we still have a little bit of movement here. This LFO is doing a lot of work. We're going to pay attention to 2 sections right off the rip. Oscillator A, LFO section. We'll turn off these for now. We don't have much here, but we load up a monster 4. Then we turn the wavetable position to 194. We're going to have to turn the level all the way down as well. We're going to turn on bin plus and minus. and move the knob to negative 29%. This is how we start up the knobs, and then we load up one extra voice on the unison. This is going to create width, make it wide, but we're going to detune it all the way down to put it essentially more in the middle, those two voices. Random is all the way down. The LFO then is going to add the movement. We need to first add the LFO onto the level, it goes all the way up. This is creating the volume movement, making us hear it. We're going to add the LFO to wavetable position, but have it go backwards, negative 68. Our first main movement has been created. Remember, make this hump on the LFO section. It's important that we have this shape. It's at 1/4 rate, and it's on envelope. Those are the main things we're going to do, LFO. LFOs are going to go on the bend plus minus, and it's going to go both directions. So if you hold Option and Shift and you click, it's going to change directions. This is what you want to do. So you want it to go both directions, add the LFO, go negative 34 on that. That's our first bit of movement. Now we want oscillator B to go on, but we want this to be a higher octave. So going +1 on the octave, and we're loading up ICANN has kick. Very clean wavetable, used in dubstep a lot. Randoms all the way down. This one stays one voice on mono. Before, after. Adding more higher frequencies. Levels all the way down. LFO goes on the level, and we take it to 72. Going up to 70. We're not going all the way. You don't want to hear too much of it. Bend minus is loaded. Negative 63%. Wavetable positions on 79. And we put the LFO on it, going up 31. Listen to the difference in movement on this wavetable position. Before. After. Cool. These are the oscillators filling the frequency spectrum, adding some movement. Then we get final movement on this filtration system. This is the filter, high notch 12 in the multi section. And then we're going to basically put the cutoff all the way down and add the LFO to the cutoff and go up to 32. Resonance is 60. Frequency is at 94. This frequency creates this notch here. And then we add the LFO to it, going backwards, negative 20. And that will move the notch. So the cutoff is moving this section, cutting the lows. Moving the lows, I should say. This resonance will be the peak at the top of this, which is at 60%. And then the drive is at 11%, making it a little bit louder. This portamento is on. If it's turned down, right now it's at 132, and it's on always. We also have mono on. But if the portamento is all the way down, it's not wiggling as much. So we keep the portamento on 133. If it's too high, it sounds bad. So we find a sweet spot, 133. Now it's time to get it wide. We use only dimension, 50%, no hyper. We're adding soft clip distortion at 84%. Distorting it. Adding another filter to add more movement. Cutoff is at 69. We're going up 100. The drive is adding a lot more volume. It's at 14%. We add the LFO to it, going up 36%. Resonance down, fat down. Getting more signal. Using the filter. Compression is going hard. Multiband is on, and the gain is going cranked all the way up to 30. Threshold's at negative 20. Ratio's at 4. This is pulling up all those frequencies now. Getting it big. But then we're going to do some final cleaning with the EQ. We're going to do a low cut, put the frequency at 43. The Q is going to go to 66, which is that resonant peak that we talked about. Gain is at 20. So look, we're cutting the lows visually. You can see that. Making it talk more, adding more vowels. That's the point of these basses. We want to be able to rah, 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 do it with our voice. Frequency is at 6973 on this notch. High notch, and then we're going to add the LFO to it. Go down, negative 23. Q's up 43%. Gain is up 3.6 dB. And this is the final effect. Nice. Now that might sound loud enough, but it's not. So we add more post-processing. So this is the before. And then the after. So you see, we just keep adding compression, saturation. That's the main concept here. And keep cleaning as we go. The only thing that's kind of special here are the reverb at the end. And then this phaser, which is barely doing much. The gate is also special. This prevents clicks and artifacts at the tail of the bass. OTTs usually make weird clicky artifacts at the end of sounds. So we just use this gate to ensure it's clean. Start with the gate, negative 24 dB. We're going to make sure that the compressors don't turn up any unwanted artifacts. So that's why the gate's at the beginning and not at the end. Company OTT is just OTT at these certain settings. Check out the ratios here, the threshold amounts. Make sure lows is turned off. Check these input knobs. Make sure this is 0 and 5. This is negative 3 and 5. Attacks and releases. And all those things will take care of what's happening in the middle here. And then once that's done, go to the main output, 12 dB, 1000% time. And the amount's at 66%. I usually have it at 33%. I would save it at 33%, this company OTT. And then whenever you need to add a little bit more compression, you just turn this up, which is what I did here. That's why it's at 66. Let's listen to the before. And the after. So we're just pulling up the frequencies using the compression. We add saturation next. This adds additional frequencies, adds harmonics, and gets it louder as well. 63% dry wet. 6.9 naturally for the drive. Before. After. Remember, whenever I'm making these sounds, I'm constantly measuring the LUFS, making sure I'm in an appropriate range. I don't want it to get past negative 3. I want it to be around negative 6, ideally. Even negative 4. This is really loud for this genre, but it's going to be big, present. As long as it sounds full and clean with clarity, then it's going to be nice. Other genres like tear out can go to negative 3 and get a little bit louder than this, but we don't want to get that loud. We want to be careful here. So we add company OTT and saturator, but then add another OTT right after it. This is going to add even more compression, really give it that compression sound. Sprinkling in the OTT at 33%. It's at 11 dB output and 1000% time. These are the only things you change. Before. This is balancing out the frequencies, and we're only doing 33%. Then we're only doing 19% of the phaser next. 2 rate, 5 notches, feedback 0. Adding a little bit of stereo imaging, left to right movement. Ever so slightly. And then we just add an EQ8 at the end to clean up the frequencies at 100 Hertz, low cut. We do this because we're going to add our sub in soon. Usually this would be, complete, but it's not because it's dry and there's no reverb. We need reverb. We also need to be clean, and we want to preserve our original thick upfront sound that is mono. So we're adding the reverb in parallel, simply and unconditionally. In this rack, we have two chains. Two chains. This is the dry chain, and then this is the wet chain, which has the effects on it. So both of them are playing at the same time, which makes it twice as loud now. But we turn the volumes down to mix them together. This is the reverb chain, soloed. That's going to blend with our original dry signal, which I turned down a little bit. Those two combine to make this. To make the rack, you get any effect. I'll get the saturator, for example. Hit Command G. Click on the chains here, underneath this highlighted one. Right-click and create a chain underneath the chain you already have. Then you have your dry chain now, and your wet chain with the effect that you want, which could be a wide effect, a reverb, it could be distortion, so many different things. Remember though, if we have both signals playing at the same time, that means that low frequencies or muddy, low-mid frequencies can compete. So I usually like to add an additional EQ on the reverb chain to clean it up even more. This is at 77 Hertz, so not cutting too much. It is doing a high shelf though. Turning up the high frequencies for the reverb signal. And this is going to get it louder. It's going to make it cleaner. And we get to preserve the original sound. So before, after. That's doing a lot to help all the girthiness. And then, you know, if you visually look to the right, it's getting past 0. It's getting too loud. So we're going to add a clipper to ensure it doesn't go past 0. See, it's almost redlining here. Add a hard clip just to finish off this signal flow. Add the sub. Add the drums with the side chain involved. Hey! That's how we do it, man. This whole patch and the project will be on my Patreon. Thank you guys for all the love and support. We're going to make a lot of videos and we're going to bust them all out here soon. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon.